Hey Greg, how's it going? We're going to do a short little video about your deadlift, your squat, and your bench. Everything's looking pretty good. I have a few quibbles about all of them. The main one for your deadlift is going to be that you're consistently pulling with your hands forward at midfoot, which is causing the barbell to swoop back. So we're going to talk about that for a little bit. Looking at your friend. Okay, so this position right here that you're in, this is actually how I would like all of your cleans to start. So if we pretend that our imaginary barbell is continuing through this entire thing, okay, your shins are in contact with the bar, your hands are mid-foot, your hips are relatively low. It's just part of the setup here. We can't really avoid that too much. And then your sternum and your chest are straight ahead. So this is actually how I would like you to set up. So if you can kind of remember this position, and we'll see how it went for everything else. I'm going to start tracking your bar path on the side so we can see exactly if you're going forward or backwards. Relatively straight, but you swoop backwards a little bit. Okay? And then now we start adjusting our hand position. And when we start adjusting our hand position, you keep moving it forward. And when you're moving it forward, what's happening is that the bar keeps having to swoop backwards, breaking it off the floor when it's forward to midfoot. You're going to add a pretty significant amount of weight to it. So that's what the set looked like at full speed. Now we're going to delete this. We're going to go back and we're going to play it at a relatively slower speed so we can see exactly what we're talking about. So we're at 50% speed right now. Okay, so now if we zoom in on this point, okay, so you see that your the outside bone of your ankle, that lateral malleolus, kind of use that as a landmark, and you want that slightly behind the imaginary barbell that's going to be running right in the middle, and that's essentially where you want your hands to be at. So this setup is fine, but you move your hands forward. When you move your hands forward a little bit, you're going to cause it to swoop backwards. And it's falling out of your pinkies because, again, your hand is forward to midfoot, so you have a disproportional amount of weight in the back. So this kind of freaked out a little bit. Okay, on the descent, you keep returning it to the generally correct place, and this was the most correct rep that you had so far on the way down, but we just have to make sure that we avoid the temptation to move our hand position. Outside of that, just the key thing that we need to remember is that pretend that there's a barbell running from these 2 points. We're going to go through our same setup, which means we're going to have our shins about an inch away from the bar. Bring your hands down to the parallel handles. Bring your shins not too forward, but just make sure they're kind of, gently kissing that imaginary barbell, and then set your chest up. And just as a reminder of what we wanted your chest position to look like, it's this. Okay, so this generally right now is going to be your quote-unquote correct setup. We have all the good landmarks here. Your chest is up, the bar's at midfoot. Now, don't be afraid to pick your hips up out of the bottom either if you're having a hard time getting it off with just your quads. If you can't pick it up with just your quads, it means, again, it's going to be a little bit too far forward in midfoot. You're going to have to raise your hips up a little bit more, turn it into a more conventional deadlift. We'll go over to your squat now. Your squat's looking really good. The only thing going on with your squat is that your bar position is a little bit low, which I actually don't mind too much, but it may be uncomfortable for you, but we'll have to fix that. So on reps 1, 2, and I think maybe 3, I can't see too many things because of the way that this is angled. So if you have your videographer next time, make sure he's standing at that oblique 45. The reps here are going to look high because of the downward camera perspective, but they're basically exactly out parallel, so these are pretty good. Okay, so now right here, if we're looking at your bar is actually sitting just on the meat of the posterior deltoids as opposed to the divot right above it. So if we have our spine of our scapula, which is what we're looking for, we want it directly below that line. And then in reality, it's basically going to be right about here. Okay, so if we're looking at it, just basically move it up 1 bar's width, and that's fine. Essentially, we're going from right here, moving it slightly up. Now, when you're moving the bar down, you're making your torso shorter, which is allowing you to use more back. If you have the bar up a little bit higher, your torso is going to have to be more vertical. You're going to have a very quad dominant squat no matter what you do about it. But I like all these. The only thing that I have a problem with outside of the bar path is that right here is that you start kipping your head up whenever you start to see the mirror. So your eyes are down here, which is good. That's exactly where I want them to be on that crossbar. You can put your shoes there to look at those too. Basically, whenever you start getting to around this point, around 2/3 of the way up, your head kicks up. You're going to look at the mirror and you're going to take your hips completely out of the movement. Ideally, you can stay in your hips for a little bit longer. We can see this more here. Again, just focus on your head and you pick it up. Keep your head down. Keep your head down. Think about if you're holding a tennis ball into your chin, trying to give yourself a double chin, something to that effect. But the bottom position of your squat is perfect. Your proficiency with this is getting a lot better. If you give this a few more months of consistency, you should be wheeling around 3 plates pretty quickly. And we'll go over to your bench. Now, what's going on with your bench is that your setup off of rep 1 is a little bit loose. So as we lay down here, we're just going to play through, 75% or 70% of what your normal is. Okay, so you roll the bar forward to the pins, get a little bit of air in your chest, and you pick the bar up. Okay, so now what I want you to notice is your shoulder position here. So your scapulars are basically just hanging off the side of the bench. You never make any sort of active effort to retract them or to pick your chest up. Your arch is really, really soft. You're really strong, so you can just kind of move this around perfectly fine. But what ideally I want is during the setup, basically as soon as your hands touch the bar, I want 2 points of contact on the bench for just during your setup. So we want your head touching the bench, we want your heels touching the ground. You're going to do a tiny bridge, and then I want you to bring your shoulders together and then pull them down towards your waist. So you're going to pinch them behind you as if, like if someone has their fingers right in the middle of your back and you're trying to squeeze their fingers, you're trying to pinch the bench with your shoulder blades. It's another good way to think about it. I want you to pull them together, and then I want you to walk your shoulders down this way. I want you to walk your butt up this way. Your arch is really soft. This is still pretty lightweight for you, so you can just work through reps 1 through 3 without really any too much of an issue. And then on rep 5, you make a kind of a direct effort to fix your chest position, which made the rep easier than your rep 4. So reps 1 through 3 are slowing down because we're not really taking any direct breaths. Our chest position is collapsing. Now on rep 4, see how it pops down and then comes back up. So we'll go back through this again. So we're about right here. Track this. I'm going to slow this down a little bit more. Now, a quick thing to think about. So if in your chest is really inflated and the angle of your chest is going to be basically about here, anything that you're going to bounce off of it is likely going to travel back towards the rack. If you have a perfectly flat chest position or even a not really inflated chest position like this, you're going to let your forearm angle get a little bit too perpendicular as opposed to tilted backwards, and then anything that's going to come off of your chest is going to come off bound towards your feet. So you see how it'll kick forward. That kick forward is not something we want. Now it's going to pull back because again we're strong enough to kind of manhandle these loads, and then we're back towards our face. Okay. And then rep 5, you do a really good job here. So you take a couple deep breaths. 2, 3. Okay, now we're at the bottom. Pay attention to the bar path. Now what's going to happen is you're going to kick it off your chest about an inch. It's going to travel and float backwards towards your face. It's just only going to travel horizontally. It's not going to travel very far vertically. And then once your pecs are at a better angle for pull, then it's going to fly up. So we're back. We float it back, float it back, float it back, and then we push it up. That kind of stepwise function of going off the chest, back, and then up, that's totally fine, especially when it gets a little bit heavier. It's not going to be as exaggerated once your chest position is a little bit higher. So again, with your bench, you should probably be moving, 230, 240s right now if we can get that chest position really tight. And then again, that's going to be pinching our shoulder blades behind us, walking them down. The most important thing to do is that it really helps to have a liftoff for this. So if you can ask one of these guys floating in the back for a liftoff, that way you can have a good setup and keep it. Otherwise, you're going to have to do a pretty exaggerated bridge to take it out. But again, tiny bridge on your head. So really the 2 points of contact should be your feet on the floor and then your head on the bench. While everything is floating, pinch your shoulder blades behind you, pull them down, and then start your set. Don't let that chest deflate. As for your programming, For today, we're going to do a heavy triple with your hex bar 275, then we'll go down to 255, and then do that for 2 5s. Now for this one, it's not really going to break off the ground unless you have it at midfoot. So just consider this practice for keeping your hands in the correct position. So again, pretending we have that imaginary barbell through the middle of the hex bar. We'll do a fast triple at 9 with your press, depending on how fatigued your shoulders are. This can be anywhere between 133 to 150, or to me 135 to 155. We'll do some back offsets of 5 here. For your squat, you're getting really proficient at that, so I'm just going to drive the weight up in a pretty linear fashion for you. We'll do a 3x5 at 235. Then for your chins, you can intersperse your chins through all of these, by the way, to save yourself some time. We'll do 1 set of failure, and then we'll do 3 sets at 9. So basically kind of like 1 dirty rep left in the tank. If you want to, you can definitely do your chin set first or after your trap bar deadlifts. That way your shoulders won't be so fatigued from pressing. On Thursday, because we're doing Monday, Thursday this week, we're going to do a 4x6 at 255 for your trap bar deadlift to get some more skill practice in for there. For your bench, we're going to do a 5x5 at 195. 4x4 for your squats at 245, then your chins are going to be up in the air depending on how you do today. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks.